from secondary 1. I'm going to present about force and motion. Force, force and motion facts. Motion makes the world go round, motion makes the moon go round too. In fact, motion makes a lot of things go. What we think of motion, we often think of cars, bicycle, kids running, basketball bouncing, and airplanes flying. But motion is so much more. Motion is important to our life and impacts many things that we do. Motion is the changing of position or location, but motion requires force to cause that change. Let's learn about force and motion and the effects of these physical laws in our world. What is force? Force is just a fancy word for pushing or pulling. If I push something or pull on it, then I am applying force to it. Force makes things move, or more accurately, makes things change their motion. Two natural forces that we have experienced are the force of gravity and the magnetic forces. These two forces act at a distance and do not require direct contact between the objects and function. Gravity produces the force that pulls objects towards each other, like a person towards the ground. It is the force that keeps the earth revolving around the sun, and it's what pulls you toward the ground when you trip. Magnetism produces force that can either pull opposite ends of two magnets together or push the matching ends apart. A magnet also attracts objects made of metal. Normal forces. A book resting on a table has the force of gravity pulling it toward the earth, but the book is not moving or accelerating, so there must be opposing force acting on the book. This force is caused by the table and is known as the normal forces. You can see the normal forces in some situation. If you place a thin piece of wood or plastic, a ruler works so that is supported by both ends by books perhaps, and place a small heavy object in the center. The piece of wood will bend. Of course, it wants to straighten out, so it exerts an upward force on the object. This upward force is the normal force. You can feel the force yourself if you push down to the center of the normal force. You can the center of the center of the piece of the wood. The harder you push, the more the wood bends and the harder it pushes back. Forces that move us. Gravity, the force of gravity, makes objects attract to each other and allows us to keep our feet on the earth. Inertia is actually not a force at all, but rather a property that all things have due to fact they have mass. The more mass something, the more inertia it is. You can think of inertia as a property that makes it hard to push or something around. Acceleration, speed, is the distance that we have traveled in a given time. Frictional force appears when two surfaces rub against each other on Earth. Gravity and friction forces to work together to slow objects down and make it stop. Velocity is the speed of an object in one direction. If an object turns in a corner, it changes its velocity because it is no longer moving in its original direction. Types of construct force. Applied force. Applied force refers to force that is applied to an object, such as when a person moves a piece of furniture across the room or pushes a button on the remote control. A force is applied. And frictional force. Frictional force is the force caused by two surfaces that come into contact with each other. Friction can be helpful as in the friction that allows a person to walk across the ground without sliding, or it can be destructive, such as the friction of moving parts in a motor that rub together over long periods of time. Spring forces. The spring forces is the force created by a compressed or stretched ring Depending upon how the spring attached, it can pull or push in order to create a force. Resisting force, like air resistance or friction, change motion. Whether the forces actually stop or slow, something depends upon your point of view. Air friction makes leaf travel along with the wind. When you pick up a pencil, it's friction with your fingers, and that's pencil like in motion. In each case, the frictional force make the two things, like the air and the leaf. What will happen if gravitational force didn't exist? 1. Every object in the state of uniform motion tends to remain that state of motion unless the external force is applied to it. 2. Relationship between an object mass is its another acceleration, and that applied to force, acceleration and force vectors as indicated by their symbols. Symbols being displayed in standard font. In this law, the direction of the force vector is the same as the direction of the acceleration vector. 3. For every action, there is an equal opposite direction. Conclusion. Whether we know it or not, motion is always around us. Behind every action we make, there is a force. We know this from research of such great scientists such as Aristotle, Galileo, and Newton. The advancement of force and motion has taught us about new different things. Role force and motion is something people take for granted and do not think about how much it impacts their everyday life. Done. Any questions? Yeah.
What happened if force and motion didn't exist?
Like what I said before, it will just stay in the same motion like they have before. Anymore. Yes.
What is inertia?
Inertia is. Can somebody help me? I don't know actually. Oh yeah, sorry. Inertia is inertia is not oh yes, sorry. I have to look back. Inertia is actually not a force at all, but rather a property that all things have due to the fact that they have mass. The more mass something has, the more inertia it has. You can think of inertia as a property that makes it hard to push something around. Any more questions? Okay. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy it, and goodbye.